Yes, yes, and even more. Yes. What's up, everybody? Welcome to day four of night school. Woo-hoo! We are halfway through, well, a little bit over halfway through the week, and we are so excited that you guys are here. Put your name inside of the chat so that we can say hello. Let's do an early roll call to those of you guys that are watching on YouTube. Hello and welcome. So glad that you are here with us at the DTDT campus here for night school. Let me just tell you how, like, every single night, we as a team here sit back and just talk about the aha moments that you guys have had, some of the stories, the private messages that we have been receiving in between. So delicious. So delicious. You know what's absolutely amazing about tonight's conversation? Tonight we're talking about how do you really use your voice? Like, how do I go through and let my voice be heard on places such as events, whether they be your events, they be somebody else's events? How do I go through and get my message out into the world and be my voice to be heard through the power of your own podcast or to be interviewed on other people's podcasts? So we're going to be talking about events. We're going to be talking about podcasts. We're going to have a delicious conversation tonight about really what is available. What are the opportunities that are out there? What are the things that you probably haven't even thought about that? I could do this, or maybe I should be reaching out to ... Or maybe I should be putting on my own personal event. Now, when you think about events, like, they don't have to be these huge, massive 3-day, 5-day, 28-day events that some, people have. Like, they can be a moment, they can be an experience. Like, one of the greatest things, now I've been in the events world for many, many years. Part of me and my impact of impacting over 40 million, I said 50 million, 40 million people worldwide is through events, through online events, through stepping on stages, public speaking. And so one of the greatest things that I became aware of very quickly is that events are experiences. Going back to the quote that I gave earlier in the week of Maya Angelou, people remember how you make them feel. They may not remember what you said, but they're going to remember how you make them feel. And working with many clients that are in production of events, I always ask them, like, what do you want them to feel? What action do you want them to take as a result of attending your event or as a result of being a part of your experience? And so we're going to have this really amazing dialogue tonight about creating events, what type of events are out there, what are podcasts that you should be creating for yourself or that you should be a part of, what are some of the stages that you should be looking for. And you know what? The delicious part about it is our team here, because as Tiffany shared with you earlier in the week, it's Team Week here inside of the DTDT studios. And we today have been deep diving into events and sponsorships and stages and what are we going to do and whose stages do we need to be a part on to amplify our voice and our message. So we have a great night planned for you. We've got a lot of content to be going through and some delicious laughs that are going to be taking place throughout the night. So before we get started into day 4, of course, what do we want to do? We're going to take a real quick look at what happened yesterday as part of day 3. So take a look at this recap and we'll see you on the other side.
But that was enough. Guys, I don't know where you are right now, but I want you to focus on getting to your enough. Just get to your enough and take a deep breath there. Get to your enough. I was like, man, $4,700. So instead of focusing on all the things that would keep me distracted and keep me far, far away, like I had heard, if you're not a person who is going to sit down and drive a ton or enough traffic, the last thing I want you to do is to think of using your story to create anything that's going to force you to volume. Because 10 a day is 50 a week. That's a lot. But it's a lot easier to say, I'm going to focus on getting one person in my 18 hours to say yes. If I get one person to say yes on $100 a day, $100 a day, $100 a day, then literally and truly you can do just about anything. Oftentimes people are not charging enough money for the product, but they just pick a number out of thin air. But you properly price yourself when you understand how much it costs for you to produce the product. And if you're like, well, Tiffany, like, you create the product to actually pay for your bills, not just hope that it'll pay your bills. So here's a great example. That ebook that I wrote, right, or a book, I could sell it for $10, but real talk, I might win if I don't sell it for $10. And I'm like, $10 won't pay my bills, but if I sell it for $105, Tiffany, you would sell a book for $105? Sure. Bentley sells cars for $450,000, and all it does is drive on the road. Oh my gosh, do we just have fun over here in these night school streets or what? I promise you that this is my favorite time of the year. The truth of the matter is that I don't know that there's anything more fun than night school. I don't think that there's anything more fun than me being with people that I absolutely adore and being able to be here, be present in the midst of my story as I breathe life to it all over again in its truest form. Your story was meant to be shared, and here I am standing and sharing my story. I promise you, if I was far away and I had got left somewhere in another country doing whatever, left with whatever, the only thing I'd really want to have intact is my story. You know what I love about today is that we get to talk about gathering the people. There is nothing more truer than having the confidence to look at yourself and say, I know that there are more people out there on this planet like me. If I could just figure out how to take myself from wherever I am, Wichita, Kansas, and Nowheresville, Canada, and all the other cities in between, and I could take a fishing pole, a net, and be willing to cast out into the world, and not hope and pray that someone listens to it, but be able to say, man, I think that it's possible that I'm going to go catch and talk to and connect with someone like me. The most magical part about gathering people, starting a podcast, developing your voice is that we are not meant to live this life alone. Like, and anyone who tells you that is foolish. We are meant to be in community. We are meant to connect. We are meant to share. We are meant to be together. We're stronger together. We're more together. We're everything together. And I know, like, for real, that if you're willing to take your story and cast a net every single day, you're slowly but surely, you're going to be able to gather a community around you. The right spouse, the right neighborhood, the right family, the right friends, the right bestie. And until that bestie comes, I'm going to be your bestie. I know that your story is like a magnet. And we got to do this thing and cast it in a variety of ways, from podcasts to live events, to keynotes, to turning on Facebook Live. And if it's not Facebook Live, it's the next event. We have a responsibility to do something important for ourselves and everything and everybody that we love. And that is to cast the net as far as we possibly can so that we can bring the people, them, close to us, so that we can build our own communities. Think of a community within a community, like a micro community. Oh, but Tiffany, I come from a big family. We got a lot of cousins, but I bet you don't like 97% of them. 5 of them talk too much. The other 5 love to gossip. The other 4 you wouldn't trust in your house with your eyes closed when you went to sleep. There's 2 of them that still owe you $100 that they won't give back because they all of a sudden have amnesia. You know what I'm talking about. We don't have to be a part of the family we were born into. We have the luxury of having this one thing called choice. And I want you to think about this world, because choice is the best thing ever. And it is the gift that I gave myself. It is the gift that I gave everybody who is connected to me, that they get to choose where they're going to be, how they're going to cast their net, and what they're going to bring closer. We're not going to build alone. There's no need to. There is no need to build alone. There is a need for you to save yourself. There is a need for you to be happy. There is a need for you to live a life that actually you enjoy and you look forward to, and you're not trying to stay asleep through, that you're trying to stay awake through. And there's so much loving and living to have happen, to have happened, that had. I think that's a word, to have happened, that had. That might be a word that I just made up, but I think this concept of you have choice. Some of you are messing around right now because you don't even know that you have choice. You have choice. With choice, you have opportunity. What I love about gathering the people, and about distributing my stories, that everything that I have built is based on my ability or my willingness to face my own fears. I faced my fear. Let me tell you, it was 2016, and I remember thinking to myself one day, I was like, man, I can't go. At that time, I didn't really think that I was as big or cool as the people to my right and my left. I read the books. They had a book. They had a big podcast. They had a TV show. They had 2 million followers on a platform called what? YouTube? They were hanging out on a platform called Facebook. And I was like, I barely know how to turn on the computer still. This is not going to work for me. So instead of trying to focus on all the things that didn't work, you know what I did? I just focused on the one thing that did work. It was just connecting and talking to people. So I hit the road and I took to stages. I did 2 things in year 1. One, I created a tour, the Where Is Your Business Going tour. The second thing I did is I literally went and I started knocking on people's doors who I didn't know. And I was like, hi, my name is Tiffany and I have something to say. And I think what I have to say would be a great fit for your audience. Can I speak to your audience? The wildest thing happened. I went from one person to the next group, from Atlanta to New Mexico to Sedona to Utah. Do you believe that they let my ass into Utah? Can you believe they let my ass in Utah? They didn't even let my ass be there. They let me stay there for overnight. You believe that was even possible? Good googly moogly. They weren't ready for me in Utah. But then I took myself to Chicago. And if it wasn't Chicago, it was Texas. And then from Texas, it was California, Southern California, Northern California. Then I went from there to Canada. They let me in Canada. I almost didn't come out of Canada because they have a really good cider there. Whew, it's amazing. They have this cider there. I think it's called Sotheby or something like it. And sweet Jesus, it was so good. I almost didn't come out of Canada, but I had to because they don't know where the seasonings are and I couldn't find them. And it was too hard to import seasonings from the US so that the food could taste right. So I had to get out of there. And then they were all messing around drinking this thing called Tim Horton. Whew. There was only so much praying I could do. So I made a decision and I was like, listen to me. Is all of this thing happening because of my story? Everything that's in front of me took place because of my story? Is that really it? Is that what I'm experiencing, Lord? Lord, is it true? Is it true that everything experienced and happened because of my story, because of my willingness to tell my story? Is that the truth? Are you kidding me? All of these people they bought a ticket to come and see me. 2016, I took to the road. 2016, I created my first tour. Fast forward, I started getting asked to keynote. It wasn't until I had these two moments of keynoting that I realized, not that I had arrived, but I was like, oh, there's something happening here. I think before that I was in denial. Anyone ever just been in denial? Anyone else ever just been in denial about where they were and what was happening, what wasn't happening? I was in denial. I was like, I don't really think all these people are showing up for just me and this, that, and the other. But I had this one crazy experience where I went to I got asked to keynote at the Virginia Women's Business Conference or Washington. I'm not sure what the name of it was, but all I know is that I thought that it was a little tiny event. And lo and behold, I get there and everybody's like, Tiffany, your picture's on the things and your picture's outside. And I was like, what? What do you mean my picture's out there? It was me and one of my team members. We landed and I'm like, what? And all I know is that these people had paid anywhere from $700 to $1,000 for one day to come to this event. And I was in this place like, oh my gosh. And then I realized I was the closing keynote speaker. Holy mother of Johnson. I paced the floor for the rest of the day thinking to myself, because everybody in front of me was just way cooler in my mind. And I was in my head. I was in my head because I felt insecure about my story. Because up until then, I fooled around on some stages, couple people. There were 1,000 people in this audience. I couldn't even see to the end of this room. Women. The FBI was there, CIA, White House. They had all bought a table. And there I was, Tiffany. The woman before me was like an astronaut. She lived like on the moon for 6 years. The next one could do gymnastics and she didn't have any legs. The one before that had like died and come back to life. It was these crazy women, like not crazy, but amazing women. And all I had was this version of myself. And I promise you, I was feeling insecure. What's so wild as I think about this time and how much we're trapped by because of the fact that we just think too damn small is that I get to the end of this day and I try to maneuver myself like these other very sophisticated women who had taken the podium, and they were like, hello, in 1925, I was doing all the amazing things and I did amazing things with amazing people and in amazing ways. And there was only 700 of us and I was the last one left. And I did it blindfolded, all with all the things and no money and no sight. And then before I could think twice, I decided to save the world while I was at it. And there was a missile. And I kept thinking about these women in my head. And I was like, oh my God, can I take the stage like they did? Because I wanted to be like them. Even though on everything I knew, I had built this thing behind me, but it was early in my career and my journey of me getting the confidence to tell my story out loud in its rawest form. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I can do this. And then I got to the stage. So I get to the top of the stage, I take the stage, and they're like, well, before they're like, bio, excitement. Oh my gosh, hold everything. Please welcome Tiffany Largie. And I'm like, and I get to the stage and I find myself on this stage. I take the stage, and the second I take the stage, I'm like, I cannot do this with these people. I cannot be on this 2-cent stage in front of these 1,000 people. Let me go find the people then. And before I knew it, I had come down from the stage. I was mic'd and I walked amongst the humans, my fellow people, and I just told my story. I left my keynote behind. And I started this audience by asking this question, like, when was the last time you allowed yourself to dream? Same question I'm going to ask you. When was the last time that you allowed yourself to dream wildly to the point where this thing just made no sense? When was the last time that you allowed yourself to dream wildly until the point where it felt outlandish, like you couldn't talk to other people, you couldn't tell other people because it just felt stupid? I believe wholeheartedly that all of us were given something called vision, and we were given it for a reason because we're supposed to give birth to it. I began to tell my story. At the end of this night, I found myself in a place I'd never been before. I really want to let you feel like I just told my story and then I ran off stage. Well, I told my story, but before I could run off stage, all of these amazing women had come up to me because, I told you I was in amongst the people. So they had come up to me and they were close and they could hug me. And I was like, hey, hi, all these great things. There was so many people, but I was trying my best to get to them all. There was this one woman who I will forever, and if you are that woman who I'm speaking of, I beg you to just send me a private note, I am that woman, or to tell me the other end of what happens. Because she walks up to me and I see her standing right past the crowd and she's a little nervous. She walks up to me and she's like, I have been debating, like my job bought me the ticket or such and such bought me the ticket. And I've been debating whether or not I would go and I would come. And I had been sitting here all day trying to figure out if I should go, only for me to find out, only for me to get halfway through the day. And she's like, I felt like I had wasted my time, like I shouldn't have come. And I was like, why? And she's like, because no one spoke to me. And I was like, no one spoke to you? And she was like, yeah, no one spoke to me. And I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, I've wanted to die this whole year. Like I've hated my life and I've hated myself so much. And I thought to myself, man, but before I could say anything else, she was like, I listened to you and it's the first moment that I've had a hope in the last couple of years. She begins to tell me about all the things that have happened. And there's a bunch of people next to me. And it's an important moment, but this one sweet woman is staring at me, and I could feel her heart and her truth and how much courage she had to get to come in front of these people and tell me and talk to me. I remember thanking her and holding her hand and talking to her. And as she's told me that now she knows that she has value and that her value is inside of her story and that she's going to take that back to her house and tell the people she lives with that she's valuable. And I was like, holy mother of Johnson, she's going to go back and tell the people? She had never told them that before. It was an aha for me. I wasn't prepared for what happened next, but it was my lesson, and it's a lesson I'm going to share with you. Because up until that point, I told my story unapologetically, but I'm sure that there was 0.004% reserved, protecting myself, unsure. I still had a lot of haters. I had tons of people in my life and family members who were asking me if I'd lost my mind. And what I needed to do was hold on to myself and my story for like how do I say this? I wish that there was a way for me to explain to you how this next moment really unfolds, because I still am baffled by it, but it is my lesson that I know that holds volumes. Because it's probably how and why I made one of the biggest shifts in just saying, oh, you need to tell your story, to you need to tell your story. My team member comes and he's looking at me and he looks like fuzzy in his face and like wide-eyed, like he's unsure of how to connect with, to tell me. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, I don't know how to explain this. He's like, but there's a line forming outside. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. I get it. I super get it. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be there in a second. And he was like, you don't understand. This is not a line. He goes, I think the entire audience is out there. And I was like, what? He's like, you got to see this. I leave, make a right, I go for these double doors who are by the stage. And the event planner is very close. So as we open the door, she's right there, and her assistant, and she's staring at this line. It's just in the random hallway. We don't even have a booth. We don't have no table. We don't have nothing. And I'm like, what are all these people waiting here for? And then he goes, I think they're here for you. The woman is like, they're all here to talk to you. And I was like, they're all here to talk to me about what? And then they were like, oh, I think that she wants to, they want to tell you their story. Let me tell you people something. I had never been more humbled and more holy mother of Johnson in my entire life, because the line was so long I couldn't even see to the end of it. And not only was the line so long I couldn't see to the end of it, but the line was so long and I couldn't see to the end of it. And frankly, I didn't know what these people wanted and I didn't know how to help them. So the woman was like, oh, you have to get rid of them. They can't stay here. We're shutting down and all this stuff. And I was like, and then she goes, how long are you going to be here for? How long are you going to stand here? And I was like, well, I'm going to stay here until the whole line is done. I'm going to talk to everybody. She looked like I had told her to go fly, I told her bad words. My team member was like, okay, we're doing this. And I remember just standing in the hallway and going like this and then going, hi, how you doing? The first person came up and was like, oh my God, and started telling me. But what was the most humbling for me is as I began to get through person after person who wanted to take pictures with me and story and sign something that they had, I realized that something different had shifted in my life and that I was no longer able to see myself how I saw myself coming in, but I really needed to own this level of my value, which clearly I had not done before. And every maybe 30 or 40 people, there was a woman who would whisper in my ear. She'd hug me and she'd whisper in my ear, I swear to you the same words. I have been waiting for you. And these words really, really sit with me because I understood at a new level what it meant to gather people, be in the midst of gathering people, and to connect with them in a superior, supernatural way that only a connective container could allow us to do. My ability to tell my story is the most important part of everything that I need to touch and all the things I'm going to build. The power of what you want and who you are is inside of your story, and not just in your story, but inside of the story that you need to tell. Move that aside. You have a responsibility to gather people, to gather humans. You can gather them in a million ways. You can gather them for a holiday. You can gather people in your house. You can gather people at a conference. You can gather people in the studio. You can gather people at a convention. You can gather people. But gathering people, or the gathering of the people, is really like the thing that is going to move the needle for you fastest. 2 ways you can gather. We can gather people online or offline. We can also gather them online and offline together. Online and offline. The other way that we can gather people is on a page. So we can gather them online, but in a micro container of the macro container. So Facebook is a container, but Facebook groups is a micro container. Got it? Social media is a container, but my podcast hosted on Apple is a micro container, because if people are chiming in and listening to me, then chances are I'm in a micro space with them. Make sense? This way of me gathering people and then speaking and teaching to them is it's one of the most important things that any of us can do. I want you to think of all the times that you could have gathered people this year and you chose not to. Why not? Why not? Why did you choose not to? I want you to have a real moment with yourself. And if you're like, Tiffany, I didn't want to gather people, I just want to start a podcast, I go, great. I want to know all the reasons why you did not start a podcast. Why didn't you start a podcast? Why haven't you started a podcast? If it was an event, it was a podcast. Somewhere you have attempted or thought of starting something and you didn't get to do it. A live event, we're going to say, is video. We're going to say a podcast is audio, and written text is a book. First one to today goes to Valencia. Valencia, who has told us the truth. She was like, I was afraid they would not show up. I hear you, ma'am. That was me. I was forever in a day that people would not show up, because I'm Black and I'm a woman and I don't have a college degree. I don't have a license. I just had this old school backdoor way of building businesses, and I didn't feel like I was a cool kid, especially to all these people who knew the F word. Funnels. What? I promise you that it is probably the most exciting part of, it is one of the most exciting part of what I've been able to accomplish, because you have to get past your fear, which means you have to grow. You have to take past your fear to grow. Right now in the chat, I have to get past my fear to grow. Cheers. This is to Valencia. F word, funnel. The thing is scary as hell. It's a bad word. You have to get past your fear to grow. You have to get past your fear to grow. You have to get past your fear to grow. We have to get past the fear to grow. We can't just grow. We can't just do it. We have to actually get past the fear to grow. How do you get past the fear to grow? Who's the first person? Tell me. How the hell do you get past this fear to grow? How do you do it? What's the method? Please give me the process. How do you do it? How do we do it? Movement! Come on, Mal, give me a beat. Yes, that's exactly correcto. Correcto. Yes, because fear hates movement. need to get up and move. Fear hates movement, guys. Fear hates movement. Tiffany, I don't want my voice to be heard. Well, Tiffany, I need some time to practice. Do you really? Practice on stage. Practice on a real stage. But no, I'd rather go to Toastmasters for 7 years. Let me go to Toastmasters for 7 years. Because if I'm in Toastmasters, I'll get practice. Now, you will get practice in Toastmasters, but you're also going to be in, let me tell you the truth about Toast. Oh my gosh, Toastmasters are going to come after me. Let me tell you about the people. Let me tell you about the people in Toastmasters. Let me tell you about the people in any of these speaking groups who go and speak for practice, and all they're going to do is practice till forever. Now, there is a win in these groups because some of these people go to the group and they don't want to be a public speaker. They just want to get over their fear of people. So it allows them a place to get in there and to practice and to be with people and in front of people and to share. Now, for that, I think Toastmasters is great. Toastmasters is great, or groups like it, because it's a great place to practice your hobby. It's also a great place for you to practice getting out of the closet and being out of the box and doing something different. Maybe you're an employee of a big company. You've got to give speeches moving forward next year and your boss told you. I think Toastmasters is a great place. But when you're trying to build a brand, personal brand, or you're trying to move serious products and services, or you're trying to build a path to something that doesn't exist because you're trying to make the impossible happen, you cannot fool around with baby steps like Toastmasters. I know someone's upset, and it's okay. I'm all right with you being upset. You know what? Let's both let's have a moment for you and your anger with me. I'm okay. I'm here for it. So the reality is that we mess around and go to Toastmasters for too doggone long, and then we get comfortable. We get comfortable with hanging around people who are not serious about pushing forward. It's like you're trying to lose 400 pounds, but you want to hang out with a girlfriend who only wants to go on a 30-minute walk one time a week. What are we talking about? You're taking baby steps and you're trying to get to the moon? That's not going to happen. If you really want to make a dent or an impact or really change how you feel about being in front of people, you need to actually face your fear. Instead of looking at your fear around the corner, peeking over. That's what groups like that is for me. And in my experience, before someone wants to say, I can't believe she said about Toastmasters. In my experience, it dictates that being in the midst of an organization, not an organization, but an environment that forces you to take baby steps, you take baby steps, and sometimes we don't get there at all. That is no different than family, being in the midst of family. That is no different than being with certain employees and things like that, where you are held back and you can't really move at the speed or the intensity that you need to. And I don't mean speed to get to the destination. I mean speed because it doesn't take, like for me, it didn't take one time of me standing up to face my fear. I really had to be, you know how many days I was on stage? I probably spoke on over 100 stages before I realized that I had something to say. Every time I stood on stage, I won't say I was scared. I was never scared, but I definitely knew that I was a woman and I was Black. And I emphasize that because the very first year of me speaking was me facing racism. That was the first year of me speaking. So I was very discouraged because race always played a role in me on, off, before the stage, side comments, weird, rude things that would happen. And I got discouraged because I was like, I have something to say and I know how to help people if someone would listen. Well, if they would listen in this way. But I realized that part of why it wasn't being, I think that part of why it, oh, cheers goes to Kathleen Panning. Cheers to this. And cheers to everybody who feels like I have felt. Cheers. So I had this repetitive journey that I had to be on that dictated that I was finding myself repetitive and fighting the same thing over and over. And with it, my confidence lacked. With it, my confidence lacked. So I spoke on over 100 stages. Now, for something that you want to do, for something that you're after, before we get into the mechanics of podcasting and events and things like that, I just want you to ask yourself a real question. When was the last time you did 100 of anything that you wanted? When was the last time you did 100 of anything that you wanted? When was the last time you did 100 of anything that you wanted? I really want a new customer or client. Well, have you talked to 100 people? Well, I really want my person to respect me. Well, have you had 100 different style conversations to get there, or have you only had 2? I really want to be great on stage. Well, great, you got to get on stage. I'm not saying 100 is it, but I do have a firm belief that we have to go through 100 types of experiences in the direction of what we want sometimes before we get the outcome. And if it's not the outcome, it's before we can get enough lessons to go, we need to stop and go in a different direction. I see too many amazing people stop and go in a different direction simply because they went down the road 2, 3 times or 5 times or even 19 times. And they're like, oh, this thing doesn't work. Try knocking on 45 doors a day. 45 doors a day, 200 people a week, easy. Different businesses. Do you know I used to be chased out of the buildings by police? Imagine me in a 10-story, 10-floor building, like office type building, regular. And imagine me hearing, wait, miss, and me pressing the elevator so I could go upstairs. And then I knew that it was no soliciting. So I knew they were going to see the number I went to. So I would press 3 and then I'd really get off at 6. Or I'd press 3 and take the stairs and take another elevator to 7. Try doing that for 3, 4 years. Why did I do it? Because I needed to face my fear. My fear was being rejected at the time because I had already been rejected in so many ways in my life. I was like, I don't want to be rejected again. I was also rejected by my ex-husband. And in that rejection, I felt it hard for myself and my family. And it was like, man, I'm being rejected. I don't want to do it again. But it was also like, this is the muscle and this is the thing that I need to actually win. So it sounds like I kind of have to get in front of this rejection thing. Oh, doggone it. And then it was like, man, if I could just get in front of this rejection thing, then I possibly stand the chance of winning. Okay, so I need to go ahead and get on and win. So it sounds like I got to get in front of this rejection thing. And then the question naturally becomes, all right, well, then how long do we do this? And then the answer is as long as it takes. Right now in the chat, I'm going to ask you to walk through those words with me. How long are we doing this for? As long as it takes. I'm going to put you, right now we're going to head to break and I'm going to put you in a room. We're going to go 4 to a table. 4, I'm going to put you in a room. We're going to head to the tables. We're going to take a quick break, okay? And you have same rules as yesterday. The shorter person with the shortest hair goes first. And I'm going to ask you to take a minute apiece. 2 things you're going to say out loud. What is the thing that you want and you know that you just got convicted of because you have not applied or swung the bat 100 times to get to the item? What is it? What is the thing? What is the thing? What is the thing? So we're going to take a couple of minutes. We're going to take 1, 2, 4, 4, 5. We're going to have 6 minutes. And I'll see you back here in 6 minutes. And I want to know what's the thing and the swinging of the bat. And then I'm going to ask you to get your pen and paper because I'm going to go very quickly and walk you through how do you build experiences, what's up with this podcast, and what mechanics are we going into for the voice. All right, I'll see you in just a moment.